Hey, welcome back out there. This is Sister-in-Law Part 3, page 16. It's kind of because I'm going X-rated with this one at times. Um, I don't really have the opportunity to sort of just randomly pick up and record a video like I do with the Shrimp of the House series. So I kind of got to take the opportunities when they come, like now. Yeah, and this is like one of those things where I was kind of thinking it was time to start recording. I know I've had a lot to say, been talkative, trying to keep it interesting in previous videos, and I thought I would could kind of carry that over in here. And for some reason, it's like as soon as I kind of make sort of commit myself to recording and start hitting record, now I'm all of a sudden thinking like, what do I want to say? So let's see. I sort of want a downward angle on the stairs, but I got to make sure that this is going to come across on the page as being the staircase. And also, I think I want him looking directly at you, the viewer. So what we do is kind of tilt the head and line up the little blue line here so that it's pretty much straight on with the camera. And I'm not sure, maybe I can do it manually. That's good. What we want to do is sort of get a shot down the stairs, but at the same time, uh, break my habit of zooming in as close as possible to A, showcase the stairs, but B, sort of give it the visual sense of how small he is with all the space in the picture. This is number 11. It's kind of, I think when I was doing this, or when I decided to start on this project, I think the idea was that it wasn't going to have such a deep, complicated story like I often do, or like I often insist, with lots of twists and turns and or levels or whatever. This one was going to be just a simple, or it was intended to be sort of like a simple, uh, like a simple, just basically a standard. He shrinks and do lots of sort of comparisons around that, size comparisons around the house. But I think with it's sort of like with Recall, where like sort of the initial steps provide certain size comparisons, but at the same time, you end up trying to hold off on other things to keep it from getting repetitive. So it's the question in my mind is how many times can I have him going up and down the stairs as an excuse to show him how big the stairs are getting, before it gets really old and repetitive. And it's like on the previous page where, I have him trying to open the door to get out of her room. Like in the back of my mind, it slightly bugs me that that was basically sort of done in, I want to say it was David's Nightmare, not David's Nightmare, Grounded. Um, it does mildly bother me doing that. Um, and but anyway, it's kind of like because you don't really have as much size comparison stuff as you want earlier in the piece, coupled with like these long render times, and every time it's like set a picture to render and go off to do something else, and then it's like you've got to force yourself to sit down again. um, it's like it feels to me this book hasn't been as interesting as I sort of initially envisioned. um, and saying that, at this point in the work, I have gone back and um, I have gone back a few times at different points and sort of read everything that's been done up to that particular point. And when I picked this up, after pushing it aside a little bit to just finish Recall, I had to read through the first two parts, plus I think it was 5 pages in this part that were done before, to kind of refresh my memory. And when I go back and look at it in its entirety, I know that thought isn't true. Isn't true. That when I get outside of the individual pages and sort of put it in its entirety, it really is a lot more. It really is a lot better than. It's actually better than what I I think initially envisioned. But I just can't. It's like in my head, I just can't accept that because, day to day I'm working on individual pages because it's like takes so long to render these pictures. And actually, like, I do have to say today, these aren't these are moving relatively quickly. Um, so even on the previous page, didn't go that slowly. It's like whatever I was working on yesterday though was dragging for some reason. Um, and I'll say, like, the render times. I know I've probably talked about this before. Render times are usually affected by a number of things, like the textures, for instance. If you've got sort of a high, if you're sort of using a high quality or an overly large or whatever you want to call it texture, the render image can take extra time uh, rendering that image. Reflections add to the render time. So it's one of the things I've been doing um, lately, and probably the last year or so, outside of the Shrimp of the House series, is to try and give everything a bit of a more realistic feel to it. I've been increasingly adding reflections to the surfaces. Whoops. Especially on a lot of the wood surfaces. You don't see it here, but um, I think the cabinets might have a slightly reflective surface to them. I don't want to say anything that's supposed to be glass. I'm trying to line this up. It's one of those things where you need it to go 1 pixel over, but the mouse kind of jerks and wants to go 2 pixels. Um, on the previous page, the doorknob, for instance, was a highly reflective surface to simulate metal. So the render engine takes longer to sort of calculate the reflections and visualize everything. It's basically got to calculate everything that's off camera in addition to what's on camera in order to generate a proper reflection. Um, and additionally, I want to say the number of polygons in a set affects it as well. So, like the hairstyles I've been using, um, are a lot higher poly count than sort of a lot of the hairs I've used to use. So the render image engine is slowed down trying to render around all the polygons in the hair, that sort of thing. It's like a lot of stuff that comes together. Slow this down. Um, that's sort of the thing. Some of the things to think about. So let's see. How high on the stairs do I want to put him? If I put him here, then it's still. I can still get a decent shot without having to take out a wall. Let's grab these two. So it's I think coming back to this, I think there's a lot of negativity. Oh my God, stop that. Just grab the leg. There's, there's kind of like a lot of negativity in my head right now when it comes to this. Oh my God, come on. So I'm kind of it's like in a way I'm kind of anxious to get it done. And I'm not really sure. And I think partly I'm not really sure if like taking it to a fourth part like I originally thought was gonna sort of add anything to sort of what's been done up to this point. I'm kind of anxious to cap this off and move on. But sort of doing these, and like, well, I've dumped all that negativity in onto you guys. I'm sort of here in the second half of this supposedly last part, if sort of the negative side of me gets my way. And it's like I'm kind of finally seeing the opportunity to do a lot of comparison shots that I've been holding back on. So it's got me wondering the other thing if maybe there is enough to go to a part 4. And because at the same time, I think there's probably a couple of things that I want to do. I know there's one scene I have in mind that I kind of wanted to do with roommates, but I think I had a moral issue with doing it from roommates. And when I was as I've been working on this one, like early on, I realized I could do that scene here without the moral issue. And I'm trying to be cryptic here because I'm not really sure if I want to spoil it, but it's I think it's basically like the scene I have in mind is I kind of want to do a moment of foot play, so to speak. I guess that's as good a way to put it as anything. I sort of wanted to do I had sort of a moment of foot play that I thought would be interesting, but I think the problem with doing it in roommates would have been that it comes across as rape, plain and simple, and that's what I had a problem with. Whereas in here, because he and Joe are married, and we've already seen them fooling around, like if sort of she initiates the foot play with Frank, it won't seem rapey at all. I don't have that issue of, because I guess like the issue with roommates was that you set it up um, where he's not really very appreciative of all the ways that his roommate is having fun with his predicament. So, the idea that he's kind of like, so it's just like, there's just no way I could have rationalized it with roommates. And I sort of definitely want to get that in here. And I think too, I kind of wanted to do a scene with him and Toby when he's quite a bit smaller. Um, and not exactly sure what the specifics would be, how it would, that sort of thing. I just, it was just sort of one of the ideas that I kind of wanted to do with this. And I think if I end up cutting this off, or not cutting it off, but if I end up bringing this to a close in part three, then he won't really get as small as I envisioned to do that. And so I think like the scene a few pages back where he's playing with Toby, sort of, it was sort of like a compromise on what I was going to do. So it's kind of like, it's kind of, if I cut it short and don't get to that, and don't do something with that concept, then at least it hasn't been completely wasted, so to speak. I think part I think part of my problem here too is, after wrapping up Recall, like the ideas for the next Shrimp at the House have kind of really been rolling, and sort of the project I was expecting to do next, um, looks to be delayed. Um, I mean, there's a possibility it could be ready to go forward by the time I finish with this story. But in my head, I'm kind of preparing to do Shrimp of the House 12 next. I'm kind of like I'm sort of just preparing myself that that's going to be the next project instead of the mystery project I keep referring to. I'm kind of preparing myself for that it's going to still be delayed. So it's kind of like getting Shrimp of the House 12 in my head, gearing myself up to do that one next. Oops. Is kind of partly I'm getting really anxious about doing it. And I think I've talked about it before if you kind of follow these videos regularly, that I've sort of settled on doing another two stories in one, like I did with the Xmas special. And I know I think I want to say it was the previous video I did in this story where I kind of did a little bit of work on it while waiting for the pictures to render, while talking with you guys. So I think that's where you got a little bit of a hint. And I've been kind of working on it. I've sort of been prepping for it a little more since then, and I do have to. I think. Um, so let me see. What do I want to say on it? So I think like I said, it's gonna be two stories in one. I think the first one, what my brainstorming. See, now I'm kind of stuck, frozen in a thought here. Basically, the working plan, the working title, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. I'm expecting to call the overall project Vacation. The first part, maybe the main part, will be called In the Woods, and it'll have the family minus Alex sort of spending a couple of weeks, like the name says, in the woods. I'm thinking they basically rented a cabin in the wilderness. Mayhem ensues, but I think because the plan will be that um, I think instead of having the dedicated sets like I usually do, um, it's going to be like a lot of wilderness. So I think I'm going to be kind of just decorating doing the set deck on individual scenes as I go, because all it's going to be is basically like a ground plane and a bunch of plant stuff. So, it's basically going to be moving around the plants and trees and stuff to make it look like they're in different places, to like make it look like they're moving. There's not going to be any massive forest set like I do with the houses. So it's kind of, in a way, that part is getting, even though I'm expecting that part to be the bigger one, it's getting a lot less prep. Plus, two, the only characters I expect are David, Liz, and three of the four kids. You know what? I think this would benefit if I just took this wall out. So where are we? No, this isn't basement. This is ground floor. Come on, first floor. Then we'll come into tools, geometry editor, and I'm going to select right click, visibility, and hide selected. And then I'm going to do the same for the inner wall, visibility, hide selected. Um, hmm. And now the question is, I've got this sliding door. Sliding door is right here, so I don't need to take door one out. Whoops, what the heck? Okay, this is being obnoxious. There we go. See, so now I can do a wide shot like that. And actually, wonder. I think if I cut this, I think this can get cut off the page. Okay. So I mean, I'll have to take a look at the characters and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made to them, because every time I do a story, I've got to age the characters just a little bit. Since, like, as you know, throughout the series, I've been advancing time rather than leaving the family stuck in a moment, so to speak, like you often see with cartoons. Like The Simpsons. They've been on for over 30 years now. And they've basically been working within the same year all 30 of those years. And now, after 30 years, they're kind of they're kind of stuck on ideas, just recycling every idea that they've, or story ideas, I should say. You see the same basic premises just constantly showing up because there's nothing, there's really not much more they can do with it. And I think that's what I wanted to avoid, is sort of aging the kids. You kind of get a new angle as you get new angles for the storylines as they get older. So I'll take a look. I think the idea is that in my head, Recall and Vacation will be a little closer to each other time wise than other stories were. I might be able to get, I might be able to leave the characters as they are. But that's, and then age them slightly for the next story, Shrimp of the House 13. But, so it's because of that, there's been more prep. I've put more of the so called prep into Alex's story, which right now is tentatively called Man Alone. So I'm sort of re envisioning his life. I basically created a generic fire department shirt for him. So I think there's sort of going to be this aspect where he's like, where he's just constantly advertising that he's a firefighter now. So it's where normally I've got a whole set of shirts and I'll try and alternate them whenever I remember. I think with Alex going forward, we're going to see him almost exclusively wearing his fire department T-shirt until I don't know how long that'll go on for, but it's like one of those things where he's like subtly trying to draw attention to himself all the time. Um, in addition to that, I think I think I've decided that at some point in the park, Chet's going to show up to reconnect, or to catch up, since he's been at college for a year already. He's already been at college for a year. And in addition, I've decided that it's going to be that, like, besides that, this part is primarily going to be him and Simon Austin or Alston. I can never remember because, like, I got it. It's one of those things where, like, one time ages ago, like, I said his name. I want to say his name was Austin, Osten, and then for some reason, somehow, I ended up marking it down as Alston, Olste. So it's like kind of the way my head works. Once I get that confusion in my head, I can never shake it. So it's like, even though I've made the effort to verify that his name is Austin instead of Alston, and I've like kind of put it into the file name, like I still just can't trust it. Still doubt it. But anyway, I'm convinced. It's like I've decided that it's going to be sort of another Alex and Simon story, and I've decided that we're going to find out he's still with his girlfriend Kate, Kelly Brown. So so since we only saw her in Silent Simon's solo story, I dug her character out and made some slight modifications to that one. And it was the same thing with Chet. Like, I didn't realize that the last time we really saw Chet was in Simon's Lament. I think in the three stories comprising year two, um, what is it, Summer's End, what was it, Summer's End, Grounded, and Aiden's Bully. It's like I never really thought that there was no opportunity to fit any of Alex's friends into those stories. And then it just kind of carried over. David's Nightmare, same thing. All we saw was Monique, at the time his new girlfriend. And then after that, Chet is theoretically off at college, theoretically left for college. So, so when I I had to dig out Chet. When I dug out Chet, like he needed the character needed some modifications to update him. And that's going to be it. Like, what I'm thinking. So it's like, what I'm thinking is that in the woods, I think Jackson finds a size changer that somebody else seems to have lost. And I'm not really sure on specifics or how to sort of merge the ideas together, but I'm thinking while he's finding that, Aiden finds a ladybug. Layered image size is what I want. And, Aiden captures the ladybug and kind of keeps it. Kind of wants to put it in a jar and keep it, take it home with him. It's sort of a pet. And Jackson, like having to be obnoxious, decides to use this found size changer to turn it into like a dog-sized creature. Not like the horror movie that he was watching in Recall, um, where it's like giant monstrous sized. It's more of it's sort of more want it to be kind of a bit of a joke where he makes it like the size of a small dog. So it's like way oversized, but it's not like terrifyingly oversized. And then somehow, like, I haven't really brainstormed it that much, but somehow or for some reason, Oops, we gotta take off. Let's go Control D and bring him back up to the floor. He ends up using his new, somehow his new size changer gets used to shrink multiple members of the family. He may or may not be one of those multiple members. Like I said, I haven't really thought about how it's going to play out, so I can't say with any certainty how it's going to go. But it's basically like the shrunken members are going to have to are going to be like um, trying to make their way through the now oversized forest to get to the size changer and make themselves bring themselves back. And I'm thinking sort of like unlike most of the time where there's not usually any sort of credible danger. I think I think this one I might have them facing giant animals and having to sort of thwart them off. Let's collapse all. And then we've got to find. Let's go first floor, come back to tools. And then let's go make. Let's show all polygons. That's what we want to do. And then doors first floor. Okay, let's go 1920. Let's take off geometry editor. Collapse all. Let's grab Frank wherever he is. There he is. So scene with the baby chair to show that he's not there. So it's the idea is like I think I want to make it like a little more. I think it's going to be like a little more frightening, maybe. Than usual. And then what I want to do for Man Alone is basically sort of the lighter of the two. It's basically going to light. It's meant to. It's going to be the lighter story. It's, I guess, the comic relief. Let's see. caps on. Oops. Sherry Toby. Sherry Toby. Yeah, you know what? So. And I think I've. No, you know what? I'll stick with 4. And I think I was talking about this in the last video when, like I said, I was kind of going through it. The idea would be that Alex couldn't go on vacation with the family because, oops, undo. Because he's already, he's got to hit, he's got to deal with the training for his new job. So the idea is he comes home at the end of the day on Friday, looking forward to having the whole house to himself for the weekend. No siblings bothering him, like no parents and their drama, whatever. It's like, it's like the idea is it sets it up for one of those. The idea is to set it up for the audience that like he's either A, going to throw a party with parents away, or B, sort of do like all the goofy things that you kind of expect when he just like all the goof off stuff you'd think he would do, and then it turns out he's really bored. None of his all of his friends are too busy to come over, so he ends up it ends up his last resort is he pressures Simon to come over, of course, because Simon's on the timid side. Like, he can try to say no, but he ends up caving and showing up. And it's the idea is like he doesn't really, well, Alex doesn't really mean to. Like it just becomes like how he just keeps putting Simon on an embarrassing spot, so to speak. And and eventually he finds his mom's size changer, and and just for fun uses it to make Simon like semi-giant sized, thinking he would enjoy it. It's another one of those things where like Simon's kind of embarrassed, and it's like just when he kind of gets to the idea, well, it's just me and Alex, nobody else is going to see this, I guess I can put up with this. That's when like other people start showing up. I think like he's come up with an excuse to have his girlfriend invited over, Kelly Brown. Yeah, Kelly Brown. And he's gonna like and he sees a need to try and convince her that it wasn't his idea, and then Chet shows up out of the blue, unexpected. But it's funny. Like I created Simon as a one-off character, and for some reason, like I just like fell in love with the character, and I just can't stop using him. It was like I liked him enough to give him his own spin-off story, and then it's just I keep. I just keep bringing him back for more guest appearances. And I have to say, like, I think the other night, kind of jokingly in my head, I was sitting there thinking, because he'll be going off to college like all of Alex's friends, so I'm probably not going to miss him story wise. I don't foresee even the remote possibility of going, shoot, I wish I could use Simon in this story. Um, he'll be going off to college, so we won't be seeing him. So I kind of jokingly in my head thought, like, how funny would it be if, like, the following summer, um, 1 year later in story time, it's like the summertime. Alex runs into him while he's home from college on summer break, and he's actually jacked. He's gone from small skinny nerd to oh, that would be funny, but I don't really. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up doing it. A year is a long one story year is a long time off. So maybe, who knows? But it's kind of where I do have Alex as the jock character. I do have I do throw it in on some little extent, but for the most part, like the muscle growth stuff that I've kind of wanted to keep it a little separate. I'm going to trim this later because I don't know how big I want the next one to be. So what do we want with that? And thankfully I did remember to change her shirt this time. Poor Val wore the same shirt 2 days in a row. I guess laundry wasn't done. Um, let's grab this. I want to make this invisible. And let's expand. Because I gotta delete. Okay, let's try that again. Because I need to delete the keys on the fingers. So it doesn't look like she's holding nothing. So let's zoom in. Okay. Bring her a little closer. I'm not really sure I need to reposition his legs completely. Let's zoom in on the head because what I'm going to do with this shot is something like this. I was thinking initially thinking of doing a full up shot and getting her head, but I think for the size comparison, I might just grab the shot like this. Actually, we need to kind of make it look like she's. Let's bring this leg in. Actually, bring it out. Twist it. Something like this. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Oops, come on. I just changed that, right? No, I didn't. Okay. Render. New layer. Way to state the obvious, Val. Okay. Okay, so I think this one's going to get cut in the middle. I need to be on the layer, so none. Okay. Okay, something didn't look right. So, like, long term for that series. Oh, no, this one is going to take a while, isn't it? I think I want to think about sort of, does Jackson make the football team this year or next year or however you want to look at it? Should I create more friends for him? It's and I think the question is, what do I do if the idea that if I'm going to go with the idea that Allie and Logan broke up because he's going to high school, that they'd rather just kind of explore, they'd rather not have that kind of a relationship, whatever the reason is, however you want to look at it. Um, sort of, do I in story have her find another boy, or do I just wait until the following year when she's in high school and let that kind of hang? Because realistically, if I do 3 or 4 stories a year, um, like I said, both 12 and 13 aren't really going to have opportunities for expansion outside the house. So, I think a lot of the new elements that I want to bring in won't come until issue 14, which only leaves 14 and 15 for that particular year. And then I'm in year 5. And I think it applies to how far do I want to progress sort of the storylines I have with Alex. Because I know I've talked about it as ad nauseum that I'd like to have him sort of married either at the end of year 4 or after the first story in year 5. And I sit here and talk about him, but I guess maybe I talk about it as if you should kind of know what I'm talking about, but sort of what I've come to refer to as years is the is year in story. So the very first shrimp of the house took place in summer, and then the fourth one, the baby, by the time the fourth one came along, the babysitter, we'd moved through fall, winter, and that one took place, or at least was, it was kind of strongly implied if it wasn't clear that it took place in spring. So those first four stories from the very first one all the way through the babysitter took place in what are what I call year one. And then year two was Summer's End, Grounded, and Aiden's Bully. So year three kicked off with another summer story with David's Nightmare took place in the summer. Showtime was the fall story. The Xmas special was the winter one, and then Recall was the spring story. That is what I consider as year three. Oops. So the idea for what I'm calling year four will be Vacation, 13, and then 2 to be determined. So basically in year four, it's the question of how much do I expand the universe, or is it more like year two where I get away the whole year without really expanding it that much? And then, and hold off the expansion until year five. But again, that's a long ways off. Because well, let's finish this up. So we'll dump these in there. And we'll look at the picture. He's looking up the stairs and he's climbing up the stairs. He's about to come out. She already, oops. Okay, I'm talking to you and I didn't even, so she already fed Toby, so she must be in his room now, putting him down for, so she must be in his room, putting him down for his nap. Okay, I'll take out that now. Aren't you clever? You got out of that room all by yourself. Okay, so we're gonna make one change. Control Z will unflatten it. Fed Toby, so she must be in his room, putting him down for his nap. Okay. That's a better way to say it anyway. So save. And export. And that is page 16. I will kind of finish those. Whatever thoughts I was trailing off there at the end, I will finish those another time. But I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoy this when it's complete, and I will see you next time.